King George I of Greece, a king for the Hellenes in the spring of 1863. A young Danish prince named William of Schleswig, only 17 years old, stepped ashore in the newly independent nation of Greece. He had just been elected king not by conquest or birthright, in the traditional sense, but by the will of European powers and with the approval of the Greek people. Taking the name George I, he became the second king of modern Greece and the first to truly call himself king of the Hellenes, a foreign king in a fragile land when George arrived. Greece was a poor, unstable country, having gained independence from the Ottoman Empire only a few decades earlier. The country was still struggling to build functioning institutions. Roads were few and badly maintained. Bandits ruled parts of the countryside, and many Greeks were more loyal to local warlords or tribal leaders than to the central government in Athens. George spoke no Greek at first. He was Lutheran, while most Greeks were Orthodox. And yet, unlike his predecessor Otto of Bavaria, George made an early decision. He would become Greek. He learned the language, attended Orthodox services, and wore traditional Greek dress on formal occasions. His reign would last 50 years, the longest in Greek history. Life for ordinary Greeks in George's early reign. Most Greeks lived in rural villages. Homes were made of stone or mud bricks, often with thatched roofs. Electricity didn't arrive in most places until well into the 20th century. People grew olives, grapes, and wheat, and raised goats and sheep. Markets were held weekly, and the Orthodox Church played a central role in community life from births to marriages to funerals. The literacy rate was low, especially among women. Many boys received a few years of education, but schools were sparse in mountain regions. Greek families passed down folk stories, oral history, and religious traditions. The concept of a nation was still new to many people. Under George, the Greek government slowly built roads, schools, post offices, and a railway system. Athens, once a sleepy village, began to take on the look of a European capital. Neoclassical buildings sprang up, inspired by ancient Greek temples. Public squares hosted debates, protests, and celebrations. Politics and reforms. Greek politics in the late 19th century were chaotic and often corrupt. Governments rose and fell quickly. George I had limited political power under the constitution, but he played an important balancing role. He met regularly with prime ministers, listened carefully, and used diplomacy to calm rival factions. During his reign, the University of Athens expanded, civil law became more stable, and freedom of the press allowed newspapers to flourish. Political parties often centered on personalities more than ideology began forming. These often had colorful names like the Nationalist Party or the Modernist Party. National expansion, one of George's most defining achievements, was territorial expansion. At the time, many Greeks dreamed of the Megali Idea, the Great Idea, which called for uniting all Greek-speaking people in one state, including those still under Ottoman rule. In 1864, the Ionian Islands were added to Greece, a gift from Britain. In 1881, most of Thessaly was peacefully annexed, but efforts to expand into Crete and Macedonia led to tensions and eventually war. The Greco-Turkish War of 1897 was a disaster. Greece, poorly prepared, lost quickly to the Ottoman Empire. It was humiliating. However, George I remained popular partly because he stayed with the army during the fighting, even when defeat was certain. Over time, Crete gained autonomy and began moving closer to union with Greece. By 1912, George I's dream of a larger, more unified Greece seemed within reach. Technology and progress during George's reign, Greece began to modernize. The Corinth Canal was completed in 1893, allowing ships to bypass the long and dangerous journey around the Peloponnese. The railway from Athens to Piraeus brought trade and travel to the capital. A new royal palace gave the monarchy a dignified home. The first modern Olympic Games were held in Athens in 1896. It was a symbolic triumph linking ancient Greek history with the present. King George proudly attended the opening ceremony and handed out medals to winners. For Greeks, it was a moment of national pride. The royal family, George I, married Olga Konstantinovna of Russia, a Grand Duchess. They had 8 children and became a popular royal couple. Olga immersed herself in Greek culture and established hospitals and orphanages. Their son, Constantine, would eventually succeed him. The Greek people warmed to the royal family. Unlike Otto, George I seemed modest, reliable, and genuinely invested in Greece's future. Though foreign by birth, he had earned the trust of his people. Tragedy in Thessaloniki. In March 1913, as Greece was nearing victory in the First Balkan War, King George I walked the streets of Thessaloniki, newly liberated from the Ottomans. He had refused to leave the city, preferring to stay close to his soldiers. It was a bold symbol of unity. Then, without warning, he was assassinated by a disgruntled anarchist named Alexandros. George was shot in the back at close range and died almost instantly. His death shocked the nation. After 50 years on the throne, he had become a father figure to the country. Thousands attended his funeral in Athens. Streets were named after him. Monuments were built. His rule marked a transition from a weak, fragmented kingdom to a stronger and more confident Greece. Legacy. George I left behind a growing, more stable country. By the end of his reign, Greece had doubled in size, developed a working democracy, expanded its infrastructure, and gained respect in Europe. His son, Constantine I, would inherit both the crown and a country on the brink of greater ambitions and greater conflicts. Though not without controversy, George I is remembered as the monarch who helped Greece find its footing after centuries of occupation. He may not have been Greek by blood, but by the end of his life, many considered him Greek in heart and spirit.